hung low over the small town of Ridgeway Hollow, a pale coin behind tattered clouds. Halloween had finally arrived, and the streets pulsed with life, laughter, screams, and the crunch of leaves beneath sneakers. But as the night deepened, the noise thinned, swallowed by the creeping fog that slithered in from the woods. Four friends trudged down a dimly lit road, their costumes illuminated only by a flickering streetlight. There was Eli, the joker of the group, dressed as a scarecrow, Tori, the skeptic vampire, Marcus, the devil in red face paint, and Kayla, wrapped in bandages as a mummy. They were out for more than candy. They were out for a dare. "The cemetery, really?" Tori asked, tightening her black cape around her shoulders. "Can't we just go to that haunted house on Pine instead?" Eli grinned, his straw-stuffed hat tilting forward. "Where's the fun in that? The Ridgeway Cemetery is the real deal. That's where the Grinning Corpses were buried." Marcus snorted. "Urban legend crap." But Kayla didn't laugh. "My grandma used to talk about them," she said quietly. "A cult, people who wore masks made of flesh. They believed if they buried themselves alive on All Hallows' Eve, they'd rise again with eternal life." "Gross," Tori muttered, "and totally fake." "Then you won't mind proving it," Eli teased. He pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. "We find the graves, take a selfie, and we're legends. Easy." The iron gates of Ridgeway Cemetery groaned as they pushed them open. Cold air spilled out like breath from a tomb. Beyond the gate, rows of crooked headstones jutted from the mist, and the scent of damp earth filled the air. They walked in, the sound of their footsteps muffled by the thick fog. The beam of Eli's phone trembled as they moved deeper, scanning names carved into stone. 1892, 1901, 1903, until Kayla stopped. "Here," she whispered. At the base of an old oak were 6 crude wooden crosses. No names, no dates, just faint carvings that looked like smiling faces etched into the wood. Marcus leaned down, brushing away leaves. "That's creepy as hell." "Perfect," Eli said, holding his phone out for a picture. "Everyone say undead selfie." They posed, grinning in the glare of the phone's light. But just as Eli hit the button, the ground trembled. A deep, wet sound bubbled from beneath the soil, like something shifting, something breathing. "Did you feel that?" Kayla whispered. The ground split open between the crosses. Cold, black ooze seeped through the cracks, and an icy stench of rot filled the air. "Okay, that's enough. Let's go," Tori said, backing up. But Eli stepped closer, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. "Wait! Look!" A pale, dirt-caked hand shot up from the ground and clamped around his ankle. Eli screamed. The others bolted, their screams echoing into the night. But behind them, in the fog, the sound of shoveling dirt and low, guttural laughter began to rise. Something old had heard them. Something hungry was awake. Screams ripped through the cemetery, raw and desperate. The others froze for only a heartbeat before instinct took over. "Eli!" Kayla turned back, her mummy wrappings flapping in the cold air. He was on the ground, clawing at the dirt, trying to yank free from the pale hand gripping his ankle. The soil around him pulsed, rising and falling like something breathing just below the surface. Marcus grabbed Eli under the arms, heaving with all his strength. "Come on, man!" The earth groaned, and another hand shot up, skeletal fingers clawing at Marcus's wrist. He stumbled back, falling hard. The grave split wider, spilling rotted earth and a thick, foul stench that hit them like a wave. Then the corpse emerged. It wasn't just a skeleton, it still had flesh clinging to its bones, waxy and gray. Its jaw hung loose, teeth glinting in the moonlight as it dragged itself upward. The carved grin on its mask, a crude, flesh-like face stretched over its skull, twisted in something that looked far too alive. Eli kicked wildly and broke free, scrambling to his feet. "Run!" he shouted. They did. The four tore through the cemetery, dodging headstones, slipping in the mud. But behind them came the sounds, not just one, but many. Hands breaking through dirt, bones cracking, wet laughter. Tori looked over her shoulder and screamed. Shapes were rising all around them. Figures in ragged burial robes, their faces hidden behind leather-like masks carved with grotesque smiles. The Grinning Corpses. Marcus stumbled and nearly fell, his devil horns snapping off. "What the hell are they?" Kayla's voice shook. "They're not supposed to be anything. They were buried over 100 years ago." "They're supposed to stay that way," Eli yelled. The iron gates loomed ahead, barely visible through the fog. They sprinted, lungs burning, hearts pounding. One of the creatures lunged from the darkness, slamming into the fence beside them, its rotted arm snapping like a branch as it reached through the bars. The thing didn't even scream. It just laughed, a low, rattling sound that followed them into the street. They didn't stop running until the lights of the neighborhood came back into view. Glowing pumpkins, costumed kids, distant music. The normal world. But it didn't feel normal anymore. They collapsed in front of a convenience store, gasping for air. Eli's voice trembled. What did we just see? No one answered. The world around them felt wrong now, colder, quieter. The fog had rolled into town, blanketing the streets like a living thing. Kayla looked back the way they came. The road behind them was empty, but she swore she saw movement in the mist. Tori stood, brushing dirt off her cape. We have to tell someone. The police. Anyone. Marcus nodded shakily. Yeah, but who's gonna believe a bunch of kids in costumes? Then Eli's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, confused. The selfie they'd taken at the graves had changed. The four of them were still there, frozen mid-smile. But behind them, in the photo, stood 6 figures with grinning masks, all staring directly at the camera. Eli dropped his phone. It hit the pavement with a crack, the screen flickering, the distorted image of the 6 masked figures still glowing for an instant before it went black. What was that? Marcus rasped, his breath visible in the chill. Kayla swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. They followed us. Tori grabbed Eli's arm. We need to get home, now. They took off down Maple Street, their costumes flapping as they ran past houses decked out in plastic tombstones and strobe lights. The laughter of trick-or-treaters echoed faintly, but it all seemed wrong now. Too distant. Too hollow. Halfway down the block, Eli stopped dead. Wait, he said, listen. They did. At first there was nothing, only the faint rustle of leaves. Then came the sound, a slow, deliberate shuffle of feet dragging against asphalt. From the mist at the end of the street, shadows began to take shape. Figures, tall, thin, limping forward, masks stretched in wide, hideous grins. Kayla's pulse thundered in her ears. They're coming. The 4 bolted again, sprinting toward Tori's house at the end of the cul-de-sac. The fog seemed to move with them, swirling thick and cold, blotting out the world one house at a time. They burst through Tori's front door, slamming it shut behind them. Inside, the glow of jack-o'-lanterns flickered across the walls. The living room felt too quiet, the kind of silence that listens back. Marcus pressed his ear against the door. I think they're gone. No, Kayla whispered. They're never gone. Eli picked up Tori's landline phone, but all he heard was static, a faint whispering under the crackle like voices buried deep underground. He dropped the receiver, his face pale. What if we? Tori began, but her words died when the porch light flickered outside. They froze. A shadow moved past the window, then another, and another. Eli peeked through the curtain and felt his stomach twist. The grinning corpses were standing in the yard, motionless. 6 of them, their masks stretched tight, their eyes black pits that gleamed with damp rot. One of them tilted its head slowly, as if listening. Tori backed away, trembling. They found us. How did they find us? Kayla clutched the bandages on her arm, her voice shaking. The legend says the grinning corpses come back for those who disturb their rest. They mark you. Marcus frowned. Mark us? What the hell does that mean? Then Eli's phone lit up again, lying cracked on the floor. It buzzed and buzzed, the same photo flashing back on the screen, but this time the picture had changed again. The 4 friends were no longer alone. Behind them, the 6 figures were closer, right at their backs, and one of the masked faces in the photo was Eli's. He staggered back, clutching his head. No, that's not real! But before anyone could speak, the lights went out. The house sank into darkness. From outside, 6 voices began to laugh, that wet, choking laughter of the dead, as something started scratching at the door. The scratching at the door grew louder, a dry, rasping scrape of bone and nail against wood. The sound came from all sides now, walls, windows, even the roof. The house groaned under the weight of unseen things. Eli's trembling flashlight flickered across the living room, revealing pale faces pressed against the glass. Their masks smiled wide and cruel, teeth glinting in the dark. The grins looked carved into flesh, impossible, permanent. Marcus grabbed a fireplace poker, holding it like a weapon. We're not dying in here. Kayla was shaking uncontrollably. We can't fight them. They're dead. Then we make them stay dead, Marcus shouted. The front window exploded inward, shards flying. A corpse lunged through the glass, landing in a heap of rags and rot. Its body twitched unnaturally as it rose, its neck cracking to one side with a sickening pop. The stench of grave dirt filled the room. Tori screamed, swinging a lamp. The bulb shattered against the creature's face. It didn't even flinch. Instead, it laughed, that same horrible wet rattle, before grabbing her wrist. Its grip was freezing. Skin tore under its touch. Eli swung his flashlight, smashing the corpse's mask, and beneath it wasn't bone. It was someone's face, rotted but human. A hollow-eyed grin stretched across decaying lips. The jaw still moved. Kayla pulled Tori free and they bolted toward the kitchen. The back door, their only way out. Marcus stayed behind, swinging the poker until it bent. "Go!" he yelled. "I'll hold them off." But as he turned, 3 more figures crawled through the shattered window, their limbs bending the wrong way. They surrounded him, masks tilting in eerie unison. "Marcus!" Eli screamed. Marcus drove the poker into one's chest. It laughed as black sludge poured from the wound. Then in a blur, the others were on him, clawing, biting, pulling him down. The sound of ripping flesh filled the room as his screams turned to gurgles. Eli yanked the girls through the kitchen door, slamming it behind them. They sprinted into the yard, fog swallowing them whole. The world outside was silent, the kind of silence that means you're not alone. Kayla tripped, falling hard into the grass. Her hands landed on something cold, a half-buried cross, one of the same wooden ones from the cemetery, and beside it, 6 more, each with fresh names carved into them. Eli, Tori, Marcus, Kayla. Her breath caught. "No." Eli backed away. "That's not possible." The fog thickened, curling around them like fingers. The laughter started again, closer now, circling. Tori clutched Eli's arm. "They're not letting us leave." Then out of the mist, Marcus stepped forward. His skin was pale, eyes sunken, mouth split in a grotesque grin. He was still wearing his devil costume, but now his mask looked real, grafted into his flesh. "Join us," he croaked. Eli and Kayla screamed. The fog swallowed everything. By morning, Ridgeway Hollow was quiet again. The fog was gone. The streets were empty, except for a few candy wrappers fluttering in the breeze. At the cemetery, 7 wooden crosses stood beneath the old oak, each one smiling. And if you listen closely, when Halloween night returns, you can still hear their laughter, somewhere between the fog and the grave.